I don't know how you are gonna top this later. So again, congratulations. It's a real pleasure to be here. Okay, so who am I? My name is Víctor Sánchez. I am an electrical engineer, and I am an entrepreneur, the proud CEO of MatchMe TV, and I managed to trick Google to actually nominate me as a Google Developer Expert in HTML5. I am, of course, many years. Sometimes they let me speak, and even sometimes they let me return to speak, which is awesome. And I'm, of course, undeniably geek, right? I'm here to talk to you about the web and what we are doing now, why we are doing it, and how we are going to start doing things today. So first of all, let me tell you about the brief story of the web seen by Víctor Sánchez. The web had started exactly like this. So essentially, everything that you use right now, carry error, right? It's this very weird notion that says, hey, I'm gonna give you information, and I have my server that has all the all the weather conditions in all the world, and instead of giving you Porto 23 degrees Celsius, Madrid 16 or something like that, instead of that, I'm gonna give you that information and a very creepy window with clouds and a sun and an animation that I do not want and never will look good in your website, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. It was a very sad time because Modal View Controller was invented when they start serving information through widget. But for some reason, it seemed fine to actually give you the model and the view together. Why do you do that? It doesn't make sense, right? Fortunately, very fast, we realized that, hey, it's not about the representation of the information, it's about the data. It's about the data behind that representation. So it was another good era, probably, which was the one about web services. You could access through APIs, mostly XML, SOAP, etc. You could access to information that was on other servers, and just Gmail, Angry Birds in your browser, etc. Started, and it was supposed to be just a static site written in stone. The first HTML, we find Ajax, the great Ajax, right? This is the terrible part. Gmail, Angry Birds in your browser, etc. Started, and it was supposed to be just a static site written in stone. The first HTML that is happening for the web, why JavaScript is broken, why the web it's so difficult to develop, etc., etc. It's your fault. It's our fault. It's developers' fault for many years. Why? It's very easy. We have Ajax. Ajax is very simple. It's the fact that you can make a request to a server without refreshing the site you are in. So when you click on something, you just have a request going to the server, and it comes back and it doesn't refresh. So the user that thought wrongly, again, that the web was dynamic, now it seems to be right, and even more right than before. So you give the hand to the user, and now he's trying to eat your brain. And in fact, we keep doing this. We start putting web apps, Gmail, Google Calendar, Google Drive, everything directly in the browser. So everyone thinks that the web is dynamic. This is why it's so difficult to develop web apps for a browser. It wasn't never thought to be dynamic. It wasn't never thought as an app platform. HTML, it's been tortured 4 years. JavaScript, it's been tortured 4 years to fit what the users are asking for. So with this, essentially you're saying, okay, so the web is the crappiest platform ever created in consequence, right? And it's partially true, but the fact is that the web, thanks to HTML5 and JavaScript, it's kind of a new dynamic. It's, hey, let's stop patching HTML4. Let's stop patching JavaScript. Let's rethink the web as a platform. And finally, make more sense of what they are doing, because if we keep patching it, we're going to break it in the end. So with everything appears HTML5. So HTML5 is this big box when everything is thrown out. And to be honest, HTML5 is Hawkeye. Do you know this guy, right? From the Avengers? It has arrows and a bow, and I believe it kills 11 monsters per battle. That's awesome, right? If you compare it to the Hulk, right? So the fact is, HTML5, if you consider HTML as a pure, barely descriptive language, HTML5 is Hawkeye. It's a couple of tags that are updated, a couple of tags that are outdated and will be removed from the standard. But the fact is, what we call HTML5 today is HTML5 and all the APIs that come with them. So this is HTML5 really. It's not about just the HTML standard, the new language. HTML5 is all about the team, right? The Avengers are way more potent than just Hawkeye. So this team is HTML5 semantics. It's online and storage for the web. It's device access, finally. It's connectivity, it's multimedia, it's 3D graphics, it's performance, and it's a new way to style everything that you have in a web application. So finally, it started making sense. I mean, there is nothing here that talks about a static data. So HTML5 is not about static data anymore. It's about apps. It's about making a platform for web apps. There is one more thing that is not in these 8 things that I told you, and it's the thing that I've come here to talk today, which is web components. Web components, it's made at the same time by 4 different APIs. It's HTML templates, Shadow DOM, custom elements, and HTML imports. And raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. Developing JavaScript for the last, 10 years or so, it's been a synonym of document.ready, my 10,000 lines of JavaScript come here. Are you familiar with that? Okay, so who here has studied something related with computers? All of you, right? And all of you know this modal view controller, this encapsulation, this unique responsibility for each component that you develop, right? So why the fuck happens to you guys when you start developing web? Why do you put 10,000 lines of JavaScript inside the big, huge closure? Why do you do that? I don't know why. I call it the jQuery syndrome. Essentially, you just put document.ready and all your code goes there regardless. It doesn't matter. It's crazy. I mean, that's not engineering. That's, glorified plumbering. I'm sorry. So let's start doing something way, way better. How do we do it? First, HTML templates. There is, without exaggeration, like 2,000 to 3,000 libraries to develop templates on client side for the web. There is Backbone, there is Mustache, there is a lot of them. But you cannot write templates for the client in the language you are supposed to, HTML. You should write direct HTML to write templates, but you couldn't till now. HTML templates will allow you to finally do templates and have inert HTML code that will need to be activated by a component later. And the funny thing is that they don't support any logic. It's just a piece of code, a piece of HTML information, or a structure of information, to be more precise, that is going to be very easy to use. How do you define it? Very easy. You just have template ID, name of my template, the code that you want to have, close template. So it's a very, very easy tag. But again, this is very far to solve the issue that we have for developing web. The next thing that we're going to use is Shadow DOM. The idea is extremely good. How many of you are familiar with the DOM? Okay, I like this audience. So the idea is actually very, very good. What you have in a website is a tree of elements that contain each other. So every branch will allow you to navigate that page till you go to the body, to the last button or the last text that you have in a website. Shadow DOM will allow you to say, hey, starting in this node, everything that comes out, it's in another dimension entirely. It's almost another tab. There is no JavaScript shared space. There is no CSS interaction. There is no accessibility from one Shadow DOM to another. And you can have as many Shadow DOMs at every single point in your DOM that you want to have them. So essentially, what that means is I have a body with 4 sections, and in every section, I start a Shadow DOM. What that means is you can put different libraries that have global variables, because we know that you shouldn't do that in JavaScript, but everyone does. So the fact is, if you do something like that, having your shadow DOMs will avoid interaction. So the isolated elements won't break each other ever. That's very, very important. And the good thing is, it's very, very easy to create. Var shadow equals to node dash create shadow, shadow dot append child my new node. So you take essentially any node that you want, and you append starting in that node anything that you want. And this new node, this my node that I'm appending to this shadow root, starting that, everything that you put inside that, it's in another dimension, won't break anything, won't interact with anything. So finally, encapsulation starts making sense for the web. Very, very important. Custom elements, right? Here it just start becoming a god. So this is why I have Bruce Almighty here. What we're going to do is, it's not enough to have templates. It's not enough to be able to isolate the templates from each other so they do not collide if we don't want them to. But you need to start creating your own behaviors. Let's think that, I don't know, the most advanced thing that you can do in JavaScript or in HTML5, sorry, it's putting a tag video, a tag audio, a tag, I don't know, P button. Very exciting, right? I want to start creating my new elements. I want to start creating my Víctor header. I want to create my Víctor image carousel. I want to create way more exciting tags than the ones that HTML provides me. So custom elements will allow you to do that. And the very cool thing is that they will allow you to define the life cycle and the JavaScript prototype for that element. So essentially, you are meta-developing the browser. You are adding new elements to use inside your page. That's very cool, but moderately hard to do. So let me show you. Okay, so this is the most together code that you will have during that talk, but give me the chance to actually explain what I'm doing here, okay? It's quite easy, actually. I'm going to create first the JavaScript prototype for my new element. So I'm going to go to var hello prototype, and I'm going to make an object.create HTML elements prototype. Inside that, I'm going to start overwriting the methods that any HTML element already have. Button has a created callback. I don't know, p, body, etc. div, span have this method, created callback. And what I'm going to do inside is I'm going to put some inner HTML inside that. And you know what they do not have? No other element, no other HTML element has the method hello. No other. Just mine. My hello element will have this new method. And I'm going to be able to log hello in the console when I select that node and just put .hello parentheses. The second thing that I will do is I'm going to go to the browser and I will tell to them, hey, I have ready a new exciting element, which is called hello element. It's almost an H1 with one content, but has a new exciting method, hello. So from now on, I want you to recognize that when I write hello element, I'm using an element, an HTML element that has this content and this behavior. So document.register element, name of the element, it needs to have a dash for now. And the prototype that we're going to use for this new element is hello prototype, the one I defined it right there. Finally, let's create an instance of my element. So var hello instance, document create element. Normally here you put a div, an image, a button. So now you have this one. And finally you append it to there, and you can start using the methods that it has. It's quite easy, but we are still a little bit farther away. Because right now you are telling me, okay, instead of having document.ready 10,000 lines of JavaScript, we are going to have 10,000 lines of HTML and JavaScript mixed together. That's great. No, what we're going to do is separate well. In every component will have its own HTML, its own CSS, its own JavaScript code, and we're going to import them. So the fourth piece of the puzzle is HTML import. HTML imports will allow you to import these HTML files, and with every HTML file that you import, you will automatically cache the JavaScript and the CSS. This API is right now the less known and the less accepted. Why? Because again, HTML5 it's not coming along to the fight. ECMAScript 6, the update for the JavaScript language, it's coming very, very soon. So there is a kind of discussion right now about how we need to have an API for HTML imports, or we should directly use the ECMAScript 6 asynchronous modulus for this purpose. So this is the only one that may or may not change in the near future. How do you use it? For now, it's very easy. You just use a link tag with the rel import and the href of your HTML code. Extremely easy to do. Okay, so this is pretty cool, but the fact is this one. Where does this work? It works extremely well in Chrome. It works extremely well in Opera because they are using the engine of Chrome. It works moderately well in Firefox, and boom, surprise, in Safari and Internet Explorer, we see more red than green. In Internet Explorer, we see nothing, basically. So the fact is, you cannot use web components anywhere, or almost anywhere that matters for the people that will pay, right? Because they have Internet Explorer 6 for some reason. Sorry? Edge right now has partially the custom elements part and the templates, but it's far from having it done. So, and it's shaky at best. So, good for us. If you visit webcomponents.org, and then in the demo part, if I have the time, I hope so, I will show you a little bit about how this all works in real life. You have webcomponents.org, and you have a polyfill. A polyfill is essentially a JavaScript library that will supply your browser with all the functions that the browser needs to use what I just showed you here. So what do we have? Essentially, in the web components part, you have the custom elements, the HTML imports, and the shadow DOM. And inside the DOM, you have two very important things that are the weak map and the mutation observers. If you don't know much about that, I will talk a little bit more about observers when I show you the Polymer properties. But for now, let's just say that if you want to use this in real life today, and you can, because Polymer it's production ready, web components are not, but Polymer 1.0 is production ready. It's necessary to use this if you want to have real compatibility with all the browsers. And in fact, the Polymer team has done a great effort, and the webcomponents.org team has done a great effort to make web components happen everywhere, or almost everywhere. Okay, so first of all, why should you care? I mean, why should I stop doing web as I was doing it? First of all, for your sanity. I mean, the fact is, websites are not maintainable, and it's our fault. It's because of the way we wrote code for the web. It's the main reason why the code is not maintainable. So with this, the main thing that you want, and again, in my company, we are rewriting our whole web app in Polymer 1.0. We are launching in about 15 days, and we've been able to rewrite everything in like 6 months, and it's a pretty big app. And the fact is, the number one feature of Polymer, it's not in the code, it's in the process. It's the fact that I can have one component for every single repository that I have. So my header, it's a component and has a version and has its own repository, and it's maintained separately from all the others. My footer, exactly the same. My WebRTC video, my chat, my everything, it's a component, and everything is separated, isolated from anything else. I can maintain it extremely easy. I can work together without having hit pull / rebase every single time that someone collides. So if you have a growing team and you are not a lone wolf developer, and by the way, that lone wolf developer concept is far, far gone, because no one has the ability. Being a Google developer expert in HTML5, it's bullshit. I mean, let's face it. There is more HTML5 APIs than people in this room. There is no human that can actually be on track to all those APIs. Android, the same exact thing. The experts are a cool concept, but the fact is, you are an expert in a very, very narrow field, and it should be that way. You want to be a very good something surgeon, not to be a general surgeon that could kill you in many ways, right? Thank you for the laugh. I mean, it's a good joke. Thanks. And the third thing that is very important is that they are extremely easy to reuse. If I now have to create a video chat application for any of my clients, but they tell me, I really love MashMe TV, but I want this part, and this part. That's easy. That's very easy now. And that's, by the way, what happens with 100% of the clients. They love it, but. And there's always this bad part when you have to change something so they buy it, right? If you use something like this, it's going to be extremely easy. Why? Because you just take the pieces you want and put it together the way you want them. Okay, so first of all, we have the web components. And web components are great, but the APIs are not that great. The concept is very good, but using directly the web components, it might get ugly quite fast if you start doing it without some help. Luckily, Google is there for us, so we say hi to Polymer 1.0. Polymer is essentially a library that will allow you to do this. Will allow you to go from the web component primitives that you just saw to the custom elements that you want to create with some sugar, essentially. It's some syntactic sugar, it's some sugar functionality like binding and double binding, like the ability to inherit and mix in components if you need them, the ability to, for instance, do CSS demming with custom properties to all the elements of the page, so you have a color that is the main color for all your site. You don't want to go, because now there is no a CSS rule that will affect them all, because you just broke that in a few slides before, right? Shadow DOM broke that part. But there is a way to do demming and put a property in every single component if you want to, but it's not the default thing anymore. And Polymer can help you with a lot of that. So essentially, Polymer is sugar. It's a way to have web component primitives converted into great custom elements with less work and with less rough edges that the API may or may not have. There's another very important thing here, and is that there is many ways that you can create custom elements. In fact, if you have a Polymer library in your site and you create a lot of Polymer elements, but you want to mix them with direct custom elements created with the web component primitives, it will work. If you want to mix it with Bosonic or Xtag, that are other libraries that allow you to create web components, that are different packages of sugar if you want, you can actually do it too. So another very good thing that web components has is interoperability. It's weird that you use different libraries to create components, but it's going to be very typical that you use Polymer, but want to use this cool component that someone at Xtag or someone at Bosonic did. And you could do that because the Web Components API, in the end, you all create custom elements and you add them to the site in the exact same way. So it doesn't matter the sugar you use when you write them. When you start using custom elements, it's going to be extremely easy to do. Finally, the good thing of using Polymer versus other solutions is that Google actually made, and it's maintaining, most important, a huge library of Polymer elements. So what they did is they made this chemical table with iron elements, paper elements, Google Play components, gold elements, neon elements, platinum elements, and molecules. And the idea that they have is that with this periodic table of elements, you are able to say at any point in time, I need to do that or that other thing, but the fact is there is an element for that. Rob Dobson, the Google Developer Relations guy for Polymer, said that at the conference at the Google I/O, and they are making that happen thanks to the Polymer catalog. So I'm going to use 2 very fast minutes to actually go and visit the Polymer catalog with you guys, because I'm going to give you the sensation of what really do you have in there. So let's go to Polymer catalog. There we are. Let's, for instance, go to paper elements. In paper elements, you have things like, I don't know, let's put something that it might get tricky, like for instance the paper menu, and let's go directly to the demo. So here you have a standard menu deployed, a multi-selection demo, and you see how you can actually start putting those together. You have, for instance, I don't know, let's go back and let's go to the paper button, for instance, which is very, very nice, and the checkbox, for instance. Let's go to the demo, and you have these checkboxes with animations. They are compliant with material design. It's pretty cool and pretty easy to use. But this is just the paper elements. Essentially, this is how to implement material design in your website. But have you ever tried, I don't know, to use push messaging in your web app, to use service workers, to use Bluetooth through your browser? That's hard. It might get very, 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 very hard. What if I tell you that using Bluetooth, it just puts in a new tag, Platinum Bluetooth device, and you're able to synchronize with Bluetooth directly from your web app? That start getting interested, because if you go to the guts of the component, you will see a lot of JavaScript that you don't want to write, believe me, and you don't want to maintain that either. So here you have a great library of components that you can use, and I'm talking everything. Have you dealt with your Google Maps API? It's crazy. Okay, it's very, very, very crazy. If you want to do something really hard and not just put in an address, it might get crazy. But thanks to the Google Maps component, you just pass some attributes to the component, and you're right. You're ready to go. And you can do with HTML things like this, like areas, points, routes, directly just with HTML. You don't write a line of JavaScript to do this. That's pretty awesome. Okay, so how do you get started using Polymer? If the element catalog wasn't enough, Google is adding one more thing to the whole area. What happens? It's magic. I promise. So the framework that I want you to use to get started with Polymer, and I want you to try it this afternoon when you arrive home, you go directly to Polymer Starter Kit. And Polymer Starter Kit will allow you to start using components with a ready-to-go scaffold web app. In fact, it will look something like this. You have the Polymer Starter Kit, you have a menu, and it's quite nice, actually. It's 100% responsive. It's pretty cool. But how do you actually use them? How you see in the demo, right? It's just a responsive website with a 3 elements menu. If you are right here, you will see that essentially you will have several steps to use Polymer. Step 1, you just import everything that you want. So you go link rel import, you already know that, and I'm going to use paper menu, paper material, paper item, iron selector, iron pages. I'm going to go platinum service worker and paper toast. So I'm going to import all of them in my site, and the second step is just start using them. So to create a menu, I'm just going to make paper menu, and inside that creating new links. Data route home with a span home and one iron icon home. Data route users, iron icon info, a span users. So I'm going to just make the menu using these elements that already have a predefined style, that already have a predefined behavior associated with them. So I'm talking that to do what you saw, you don't write one single line of JavaScript. You just write this menu in HTML. It's defining everything from scratch. It's crazy. First step, there is no third step, right? You just import them and start using them. There is no more steps than that. So the step 3 is 404 not found. Okay, so let's start making some elements, right? Let's start having. I don't want to use the paper elements. I don't have what I need to do because I want to do something really cool, crystal meth in the web, right? And I don't have an element that is crystal meth. So if I don't have it, I will have to create it. I'm flying to the US soon, so I hope this part of the streaming failed because I don't want to be asked too much for the TSA. So how do you make elements? Making elements, it's extremely simple. And I want to leave some time for questions, so I'm going to try to be quick. Essentially, what you have is you import Polymer as an element, you define a DOM module, and that DOM module is composed essentially by a template and some JavaScript. So you have this template, like this is owner hello, And then you define Polymer is name of the tag, properties, owner, type string, value Victor, and the HTML will look something like this. You import Web Components Lite, so it works even in Internet Explorer or whatever. You import your element that at the same time imports Polymer, so this is recursive, you don't worry about that import. And to start using it, you just put hello element owner equals GDG Porto. So the value by default, Victor, it's changed directly by this attribute. And again, you can put very complex JavaScript inside this element, but for the user, for the final user, or for your UI guy that puts your web together in your company, they are just using HTML. They are just putting together some components that might be very complicated. In my company, my designer, it's making, I don't know, it's changing the size and the position of the web conference that you have in WebRTC. And she's doing that without knowing anything of WebRTC. She doesn't need to. She doesn't need to. So it's again a new way to work. There is one more thing that I would like to talk you about, and it's the fact that if you go right now to customelements.io, you're going to be able to see every single web component that people is writing directly or with Bosonic, with Polymer, and with many others. And there is right now like more than 1,000 repositories for 600 people. So the idea here is that all of them are Bower packages. So you are able to just go here and you have a marketplace of HTML pieces, HTML components that you're going to be able to reuse. And again, those are very well done and can be customized because they have a default behavior, a default look and feel even, but you can change it with custom CSS properties to make it look alike in your website. This is not widgets 2.0. It's a new way to actually develop websites. And we are talking of making very, very fast websites. I'm talking 3+, 4+ in speed in order to develop new websites. This is the new way to actually develop HTML. So this is everything that I would like to talk about today. If you have any doubts, you have any questions that you would like to ask later, and not here, I will be glad to answer. But I would like now to have 10 minutes to actually have a real chat and solve some questions if you have them. Thank you very much for your time. Go ahead. Let's go for the important part. Hi.
So thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
I was on a talk with you many years ago, and it's still top notch.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I'm using not Polymer but Angular 2, and it's based on WebComponents, and they have native integration with Shadow DOM. But I have a question for you. When dealing with themes, you have a huge website, and you have the styling inside your components, but you want to theme the whole website and you want to customize the website for each client.
Mm-hmm.
I know Polymer is like a polyfill for the CSS for you to apply, and then you can change the styling inside a shadow node,
Mm-hmm.
like you talked. But how can you scale that without Polymer? How can you scale the theme part in a web component base?
Okay, so to be honest, right now without Polymer, this is a big issue. The good part is that the Polymer team and part of the Google team actually made CSS custom properties a thing. So essentially, custom elements will be composed by one more API that is CSS custom properties. Till that arrive, right now that's an issue. What we have done before custom properties I'm referring to is using either less or Sass and have a sheet, a dot less or a dot Sass that is just colors and variables. And what we do is we embed that into a component that only has a less or a Sass file, and every single UI component has that import inside. So I'm able to use the variables of main color, secondary color, cool background color, etc. in every single component. Yeah. So exactly when it's compiled, what you do is, and it's when it's compiled and vulcanized later, essentially you have these components work and be styled in the way you want them. It's a trick, but in the end, what I have is a component with just one less and one big less and one big sass. And when I want to change the color from the whole website, I edit that component and I change everything. So it's not ideal. It's not how it's supposed to be, but it's the way it works right now. You're welcome. More questions, guys? Go ahead.
How do you see this playing with Angular without the two version? Custom directives for components?
Right now, you need to understand a very important thing, and it's that while Angular it's a framework, and what I mean with that is that you can build a whole web app with Angular. You cannot do that with Polymer. Why? Because in the end, Polymer it's a library to manage custom elements, right? And the fact is, there is no orchestration at all in Polymer. So this might change soon with Carbon elements that they were announced in Amsterdam in the big conference that they have, and this might change. And maybe with Carbon elements, you can substitute Angular 2 or even Angular 1 with plus Carbon elements. That might happen. And in fact, some of the people I talk to, and I talk about this a lot, as you can imagine, are seeing that future. But again, I don't see Polymer becoming better at orchestration than Angular anytime soon. So some kind of mixing, and again, I don't like Angular because I don't like to have orchestration done for me. I like to build my own orchestration. But again, I'm a very particular developer, and I build very particular web apps. But Angular is very useful for many developers. And again, you can have perfectly working with directives that creates components, and that might be Polymer. There is some good examples and some good experiments of people using Angular plus Polymer with success. But in the end, it's not a framework right now. It might become one if you put all the elements that they are building around them, but right now it's not a framework. So the main difference is you cannot build a whole web app just with web components, or not yet, because you're going to need that orchestration part. So that's the main difference. And in the end, it might become a Angular Polymer hybrid that will be the killer framework for the web. Polymer with Carbon elements can become the new framework and essentially kill Angular. Or Angular 2 may adopt Polymer and Carbon and become the next big thing. I don't know. But the fact is, right now, are very different things because of the scope of the project. More questions, guys? No? I'm flying to Madrid in a couple of hours, and we'll have 6 minutes.
But right now, Polymer has an opinion about the orchestration framework to use? Or you, at least?
I do. So I'm gonna talk for myself. Again, for me, orchestration for my apps are too important to have to be doing that with a framework, in my case. But the truth is, if I need to do something very fast, very quick, I would appreciate having elements that let me orchestrate, Carbon elements in that case, than having to use a framework and the Polymer library in the front end. So I expect that for small projects, I will have Carbon elements to give me the little orchestration that I need to do something. And for big projects, I will keep writing my orchestration framework for every single project, because in the end, even the most tailored orchestration framework will have things that you don't use, that you don't need, and that will load your application. And it's code that maintaining that and knowing what it's doing, etc. I don't like to have that legacy on my project. But again, it's a very opinionated opinion. Okay, so last question. I have one more. Go ahead. No? Okay, again, guys, enjoy the day. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you like it.
Okay, this afternoon is like a web attack, so we'll proceed through the web with another speaker. from critical manufacturing. You see, even the speakers challenge each other. No, Polymer is the best. No, Angular.
In fact, we really love each other, but with a beer, you don't want to see us discuss Polymer versus Angular, so don't do that.